Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Vagdevyai Namaha. I am very happy to present very little what I know from Bhagavad Gita. So today we are going to see about the definition of yogi, or what is yogi or yoga according to Bhagavad Gita. This is what we are going to see today. But before entering into the content, I would like to share a few things to create a curiosity and also some clarity. What normally people think is yoga related to the physical body. I am sure here in this audience we will not have that confusion. But still, when we see even Indian yogis or the people, those who stand for yoga, we see two different types of people: those who are more into the physical part of yoga, and on the other side, we see people, those who are physically not slim or fit. They may be little stout, they may be even fat, and even sometimes may look obese, but still they are also called as yogis. So we are going to get a complete different picture of the definition of yogi today by the end of the next 30 minutes. So are you all with me? Wonderful. So these are the few disclaimers I would like to share before entering into this discussion. There are various interpretations in Bhagavad Gita. I don't want to go in detail of all those things, but I just want to give you a few ideas in what and all ways we can get confused and we may not get to the right track, because there is no such a thing called as right track, because there are many ways of understanding Gita. There are different groups have a different stands on different shlokas. So this is the first one, that is various interpretations are there, and for everybody their guru's statement or definition is authentic. Therefore I want to just tell, I am not going to take any stand. I am just gathering from the perspective of yogi or yoga in different context from different views. In few I have followed Shankara, and in few I have followed Nilakanta. So I have got different from different Mahatmas, just for our understanding and our benefit. And also the entire presentation is going to be not talking about something very, very superficial, tangent which doesn't enter into our life or in our practical life. I'm going to try to connect with our daily life, how we are different from the yogis and how we can become yogis, or what are all the things we can do towards that. And there are many things which are secret. Secret, I mean, which are not clearly explained intentionally. There are a few things only when a guru teaches, after seeing the level of a student, few things and few concepts will get atmasat. We can completely understand. Otherwise, understanding few concepts is very, very tough, or it is not going to happen. So that is also one of the limitations which we need to keep in mind. The third one is personal limitation, and that person is me. So with my own vasanas and my own samskaras and my own understanding, whatever I know and whatever I understood, that is what I am going to share. Therefore, there can be limitations from my end also. Okay. Then the fourth one is individual understanding. Though you may be full-heartedly listening to whatever I am going to share, but still the understanding happens based on your mood, your present situation, present memory baggage. So all those things will also influence your understanding. So that is also one more limitation. And the last one, or before last, is prarabdha. So we all have our own journey ahead. So whichever is connected to whatever journey we have and whatever we had, that also is going to play a very vital role in understanding few concepts which we are going to discuss today. And last but not least, we are going to speak the entire concept in English. Therefore we need to understand English can't be literally translated from Sanskrit. So Sanskrit has more versatility and in-depth linguistic design, which we may not have in English. And when we get into a few words, we may generally get into the meaning which normally we use in English. So that is also a possibility where we may not fully get into the real picture, but let us try our level best to understand as much as possible. being said that, let us start the journey. So in the next 25 minutes, we are going to see these two things: 10 qualities of a yogi or definitions of yogi, and 10 synonyms of yogi which is used in Bhagavad Gita in different context, in a different place. So the concept of yogi is used but in different words. So that is what we are going to see in the second. And I request to you all, those who are very serious about understanding the concepts and implementing, please take a notebook and pen, or a keep or Google Notes, so that you can take notes. And also, intentionally, I have not wrote English definitions in few places. I have wrote English transliteration of Sanskrit words, and I'm going to explain in English, obviously. So at the end, it will be nice if any of you can tell the English words or definitions of it. Therefore, there will be something take away when you leave this next half an hour. We have intentionally kept Dakshinamurti in the side, because Dakshinamurti is the yoga's Adi Guru, and he's the one who gave the entire yogic wisdom to the entire world till today. So therefore, that is a representation. Now we are going to see the first definition of the word yogi. Shravana Manana Asaktaha. This is a statement comes in Bhagavad Gita, where they tell about what is a quality, what are all the qualities a yogi should have. And the very important thing what they say is Shravana and Manana. Shravana means hearing, and Manana means contemplating, not thinking, not remembering, contemplating. It is something like how an animal will first eat and then it will chew, sitting for 1 or 2 hours. The same way, assimilation plays a very, very vital role. That is called Mananam. So anywhere we learn, let's say a person is going to gym, he will first see darshana, and then he will listen to the coach whatever he says, and then he will do. But here what they say is Shravana Manana. The Manana part is very important. Otherwise, we may do in front of a coach or when we are in gym, but when we go back home, we may not practice what he asked us to do, because the Mananam part is missing. And yogis are those people, those who are very conscious on Mananam of whatever they hear or study from their masters. So this concept of getting is not important, getting and assimilating is also important, makes a very unique feature for a yogi. And the sentence is not complete, it is just for our sake I have written. 4 things they say: darshana, to see, to observe, to be alert; shravana, to listen, to read and study everything; manana, contemplating on understanding the concepts whatever we learn, let it be a artificial intelligence or let it be a entire thing. We always think yogi is a person who is always a religious person, who is always away from the world. Not necessarily. We are going to see so many qualities. So therefore, yogi can be a farmer, yogi can be an athlete in Olympics, yogi can be a housewife, anybody can be yogi. So therefore, we need to understand this concept. There is no, this is good knowledge, this is bad knowledge. Whatever is available, with that, if a person experience to the reality, then that person can reach the divine. So therefore, the Shravana, Manana, and the third part is Nididhyasana. Nididhyasana means forget about these names. What you are supposed to understand is the concepts. So seeing, then listening or reading, and then the third part is contemplating. And after contemplating, the fourth one is very, very important, which is called implementation. Nididhyasanam, that is the right word used. Nididhyasana means you become that action. It is not that you do the action. There are so many people, those who do when somebody tell us, but there are people, those who don't do when nobody tells, right? So this is not that kind of people we are talking here. They understand, and once they understand, nobody can stop them. They will do without any influence from outside. So that is called Shravana Manana Asaktaha. So they have a deep desire to listen and contemplate. Asaktaha means interest. They have interest to contemplate. They are not the people they just watch Netflix next and go and watch reels in Insta and then move to something else. Only intake. No, intake is important, but more than intake, the contemplation is also important. So this is the first quality. The second one, Manogata Sarva Kama Parityagaha. Manogata means the thoughts which enter into the mind, the desires which enters into our mind. Manogata Sarva, everything. Kama, desire. Kama is not lust, Kama is desire in general. Sarva Kama Parityaga. So not holding to any desire which pops into the mind. Let's say suddenly somebody comes up with a latest version of an iPhone or a tablet or a bag. The first thought comes is, where did you buy? How much it is? Now, forget whether you buy it or not, but let us ask the question, why did you ask that question? What is the price? Where did you buy? Because deep inside, you have the desire to own it. And you need to know where and how much to own it. Whether you own it or not is secondary, but the desire is already there, right? So are you getting that desire or not matters. If you get the desire, then you need to work on it and you need to be conscious about it. Let us see about how to go there. We will discuss later. But let us understand, the yogis are the people, those who get the thoughts, but they don't allow the thought to take over. They just leave the thought as it is. Therefore, the thought doesn't even arise in the time in their mind that I want this, how much it is. That thoughts won't arise because they have tyaga is sacrifice, or parityaga means it doesn't even arise. You leave it. It doesn't come to you, right? So that is the second very, very important quality. I would like to tell a small story. Once Swami Vivekananda was in Rajasthan, and a Rajasthan king was super impressed by Swami Vivekananda, and Swami Vivekananda was staying in every place for a very, very short time. Therefore, he was not carrying any money with him. He was walking in the road. If somebody takes a ticket and send him in train, he will go. When the money ends, he will get down and walk. So he has no goal with the money. Therefore, he was continuously parivrajaka, they say, he was walking and traveling. And this Rajasthan king was super impressed to see a young man speaking amazing English with so much of knowledge, walking as a beggar. So he wants to give something to the yogi, because that's what the king's desire is, the king's ego. I want to give. So he told, I will give you something. What do you want? Ask me. And Vivekananda had no thought in his head. Why should I ask? I have no desire. I don't want anything. Then at last Swami Vivekananda was called, and a minister was also accompanied with him, and asked him, go to the market and whatever he sees, you buy it. Whatever Swami Vivekananda sees for more than 1 second, you buy it and give it to him. Fine. So Swami Vivekananda was walking and minister was following, and minister was carefully observing Swami Vivekananda. And Vivekananda, when he saw hutka, that smoking pipe, when Swami Vivekananda was, in his school days, college days, before joining ashram, he used to use the hutka, that smoking thing, and it is very common in North India, many places. It is not the drugs which they use today, but it was a common thing for the climate and many things. So Swamiji remembered by seeing that his childhood, and the moment Swamiji stayed for more than 1 second, the minister bought that hutka. It was very costly. It was made by a unique wooden carving, etc. And Swamiji told her, why is this? I don't want this. No, you should get it. Fine. So they bought that, and it was brought to the place where Swami Vivekananda was staying in palace. Next day, when Swamiji was leaving, at that time, Swamiji found that the cook was looking at the hutka for more than 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whenever he was coming inside and going. So when Swamiji was leaving, Swamiji told, the hutka is for you, you take it. The entire structure, you take it. It is for you. And when the king came to know that such a costly, beautifully, architect work that is not taken by Swami and it was left to a cook, the king felt very bad. And the king told, no, how can you give? I gave it to you. Now, what is this? What is happening here? Manogata sarva kama parityaga. Swami Vivekananda was not having any kama inside, and they bought, and he said no. And when someone was looking, he gave, and that time also it was not holding. Whereas the king, even though he gave, even after giving, he was holding to that thing as if it is his, because he gave, that money belongs to me. Therefore, he has the deep desire that, no, you should not, you should take. Now, still he is trying to control that object because he gave the money. Now, imagine how much a kama can go. It is not only that you own something, even when it is not under your control, the desire still exists. And that is what is called the yogi's second quality. That is, the desires doesn't exist in the mind. Are you all with me? Wonderful. So if you are with me, just comment so that I will know you are there. The third one is very interesting thing. It is called Alam Pratyayavan. What is Alam Pratyayavan? Alam Pratyayavan is, the Alam is a desire which in Sanskritam, the simple word Alam means enough. So enough, if somebody says, that is called Alam. So Alam Pratyaya means brain, knowledge. Alam Pratyayavan, the one who has the knowledge of enough. Enough is a very, very powerful, very, very big knowledge. If a person understands this concept of Alam, then that person's life will be very simple and very amazing. And when we, why people eat more? People eat more because when they took the first morsel of food, it was very tasty. It may be because they were starving, or because they didn't eat that product for a long time, or because the food was really good. Either way. And the moment when they put the first morsel in their mouth and it is tasty, they took a deep decision in their mind that since it is tasty, I should have more, because if I have more, I will get more happiness. Though it is not, but the mind works like this, right? So I eat, I get happiness. So if I eat more, I'll get more happiness. This is how the mind works, and therefore, after taking the first morsel, they try to put more food on their plate, and that is how people eat more. Now, Alam Pratyaya tells that whether it is tasty or not, Alam, tasty, fine. I enjoy now, no future. So this concept of Alam makes a person to stay in present. And Alam's opposite is always craving for the future happiness. Though the present happiness is there, they will not enjoy. They will be always thinking about the future. When a person is not saying enough, that means he is thinking of future. Yes or no? When a person is getting 80 marks, if a person is thinking about 90 marks, that means he is thinking about the future. When a person is earning 2.5 lakhs per month, he is thinking of a promotion with a 5 lakh extra, then he is thinking about future. Because if I get 5 lakhs, how will I enjoy? Therefore, now enjoyment, that is not in the picture at all. So, Alam Pratyaya makes a person anywhere, any level happy. Okay. I have so many things to share, but we have very less time. So, let us reduce the discussion. In London, they made a research where a very famous videographer, a director, made a movie on happiness. The movie name is Happy Movie. You can just Google happymovie.com. And when he researched on this, he found that the rickshawala called Lakshman in Bengal is more happier than billionaires in London. How could somebody be happy in a poor village slum in Bengal than a billionaire? Because the billionaires were not having the alam, whereas this rickshawala was very, very happy with getting 100 rupees, 200 rupees every day. So the alam makes a person happy. I am not saying you should not earn more. I am not saying you should, earn more. I am just telling the alam makes a person happy, not the money. Okay. Now the fourth one. Bahyalambana nirapeksha. Bahya means outside. Alambana means a dependent. Apeksha means want. Nirapeksha, you don't want. You are not a dependent on anything outside. That is the quality which is mentioned for a yogi in Bhagavad Gita. What does that mean? A person who is deeply centered in his own self will not need anybody's attention, likes, shares, support, help, anything. Today, Every action of us is dependent on others. When we wear a dress, is this dress good? We ask. Why? Not for us, but for others' happiness, whether they like or not. That means we are dependent on their certification, whether the dress is good or not. When we eat a food, we don't think what is good. We always think which is trending. No, 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 the cheese that is very famous. Let us try that. Why? Because everybody are trying and everybody says everybody are getting happiness. Therefore, let me try that. That means we are not believing our tongue, we are believing others' statement and others' reviews. Every action, starting from a very small action till the biggest decision of our life, how much we are dependent on outside. This is what is the secret of a yogi. Yogi doesn't care about anybody in the world, anything in the world. That is why they say yogis' constitution is different. They don't fall under any constitution of any part of the world. Why? Because they have their own system, and based on their system they live, and they live for themselves and not for others. Now, the fifth one, Sanyama. This is a general one which many people know. Indriya Nigraha. Sanyama means sensory organs control. We have very less control with our sensory organs. And sensory organs here means mind also. Because without mind, there is no senses, right? So only when the mind is connected with the senses will get life. So when our mind and sensory organs are in our control, then we won't get a different thought without our permission. And when we get different thoughts and when we get unwanted thoughts in our mind because we see something, because we hear something, because somebody touches us, that means the sensory organs are deciding our thoughts and not we are deciding what our thought should. So therefore, the Sanyama is a definition for sensory control. And I would like to tell one thing. In Hatha Yoga, there is a segment where people say that to test whether a person has attained the Sanyama or not, they will ask the sadhaka to open his mouth and place sugar or jaggery or rasagulla, Mysore pak, something in the mouth. And when the tongue doesn't allow get the impact of the sweet and produce saliva, and when the sugar is just like a crystal stone and it doesn't melt, that means that person has achieved Sanyama. And even after placing sugar in the mouth for 5 minutes, when they spill the sugar, when they spit the sugar, it will fall like as if it is a stone. But imagine what happens if we put a spoonful of sugar in our mouth now. Within no time, we will see, lava there, sugar water. So that is the difference between the highest level of Sanyama which yogis have. The sixth one is Anashrita Karma Phala. Ashrita is dependent again. Na Ashrita, Anashrita, not dependent. Karma Phala. So whenever they do an action, they do for the action sake. And they don't do the action for the result sake. There are so many miscommunication and misunderstanding happens around this area. I will try my level best. It is a very experiential big concept. Let's say I am writing an exam. If I write exam for the question and the answer and the knowledge which I have, then it is called Karma Phala Tyaga and Karma. And if a person is always thinking about result, oh, if I write this in this way, will I get 90? If I, underline this, will I get more marks? If I write the same question twice, will they consider at least 1 mark? Now what happens is the very presence of being in the exam and writing the answers which also goes off. And there is a fear, there is an anxiety, there is a pressure, which completely collapses the entire beauty of exam. There was a very famous cricketer, right? Balaji, not Balaji, Ashwin. Ashwin, when he was bowling, he made a very big record in one match. And after that, when the interviewers asked him, he's a bowler, a cricket bowler. When they asked him, how could you do when you make the bowling, when the ball is about to release from your hand, what will you be thinking? What should be, what will be your thoughts? And Ashwin smiled and told, I was thrilled when I heard this. Ashwin told, when I was throwing the ball, when the ball was about to release from my hand, Ashwin is not there. Only the ball exists. I am the ball when the ball is bowling. What a big statement. And that is what is called anashrita karma phala karma karoti iti. When he do the action, he becomes the action, and he is not outside in the future thinking about how it happens, what I will get out of it. Anything for that matter. When the action is involved, the beauty comes out of it without doubt. Seventh quality, okay, this also I will share. There is a definition in Bhagavad Gita where they say the anashrita karma phala karma karoti, this concept of action, doing an action without doing an action for the action and not for the result, whoever does that, that person is called as yogi, and also that person is called as sannyasi. So this is one thing I would like to say. And also the second one is not one who do ritual and any inaction, just sitting and saying that I am doing so many things, or meditating, I don't do anything, I am sannyasi, blah blah. So they literally tell, Krishna literally tells, a person who does a ritual is not a yogi. A person who just sit idle is not a yogi. Only a person who doesn't have that result thought is a yogi. So that is why it is mentioned separately. The seventh one, Sanyasta Sankalpaha. This is a very, very tricky one. If I tell bluntly without a definition, the entire marketing gurus will come against me. Sankalpa is resolution. We take a resolve, right? I want to do it. Sankalpa. I want to do, I am going to become this and this in this and this year. Every desire, confident statement about future, will statement, it all comes under Sankalpa. And yogi is a person who do sannyasa of the very concept of Sankalpa. Sanyasta Sankalpaha is yogi. That means he even sacrifices the desire to become something, do something, achieve something. First, let us see whether it is good or bad later. First, let us see whether it is easy or not. It's the most toughest thing to the core. I'm sure many of you are, grown-ups. Therefore, you might have already tried so many, professional goals, passion goals, and career goals. And whenever something pops up in front of us, we get a deep desire to achieve that. And sometimes the spirituality pulls us to, what is all these things? Let us do something, simple and silent. And when we enter into this path, suddenly when someone pops up and says, I achieved this in such a short time, or some success, some award to somebody, again the deep desire pulls us back to this path. There is a swing between the Sankalpa and Asankalpa between every human being without doubt, at least in the path of spirituality. And here comes a very beautiful, blunt, daring statement that the yogis doesn't have the, they do tyaga of the Sankalpa. Now, what does that mean? Do they mean to say that they don't desire something for the future goodness also? No, it is not that. Remember the previous statement of definition for sannyasa. Sannyasa means anashrita karma phala, right? So therefore here the word sannyasa means not action, but the result of the action. So whenever we do sankalpa, if we don't think about the result, but we think about the action, and if we have such a sankalpa and we work for it, then we are yogis. Beautiful, right? I'll repeat once again. You have a goal, you have a sankalpa to achieve something, but the moment you have it, then you don't think about the result, but you focus on the action. Then that is called sankalpa, sanyasta sankalpa. That is what happens in football, right? The football, when there is a ball in front of you and you are playing football, will you see the goal post or will you see the ball? What will be the ratio? 5% goal post and 95% ball, or 95% goal post and 5% ball? Ulta, right? Most of the time we will be looking for the ball and rarely we see the direction. That is okay, that's all. So that is what is called sanyasta sankalpaha. So when a person has a deep connection with action and not with the result, then that person can achieve. That is what the first statement says. And the second statement says the deep pratigya, sankalpa, the achievingness, the self-confidence, boosting dialogues, even that should not be focused with the goal, but even that should be in our action. There was once somebody asked our Prime Minister, what do you want to become? He said, I don't want to become, I have so many things to do. So I have so many things to do, but I don't have anything to say what I will become. I have so many things to do. So doing is important, and that is the seventh quality. Eighth quality, Jnana Vijnana Triptatma. This is a very, again, a beautiful one. Jnana and Vijnana, okay. Triptatma, he is happy with whatever Jnana and Vijnana that person has, and he will not have the deep desire to explore more and gain more Jnana and Vijnana. Now, what is Jnana and what is Vijnana? In a technical term, whatever the Shastras say is Jnana, and whatever you apply and implement and improve on you, that is Vijnana. In a scientific term, if I want to say, Jnana is pure raw science, and Vijnana is technology. Do you have a deep desire? Can you see the screen? Okay. The deep desire to enjoy the technology is different from having the deep desire to explore more, learn more. There is a very beautiful statement, Sarvarambha Parityagi. It is in Hatha Yoga. Sarva Arambha Parityagi. Whenever something new thing comes, hey, let me try. That Arambha, new things trying, that is also, sound is disturbing. Very sorry. Is it audible now? Okay.
Yes, we can hear.
Okay, 2 more minutes, I'll complete. Sarva Arambha Parityagi. Any new initiative happens around, he will not be the first person to try it out or involve, because that curiosity of a child of exploring new things and learning new things comes only when that person thinks that if I do new thing, I'll get more happiness. And if that is the case, then we will never get happiness, because there are crores of things in this world. There are people who think if I go to Singapore for a tour, I'll be go to Switzerland for a tour for 1 month, I'll be happy. The world is so big. How are you going to cover up every village and every city in this world? And even if that is done, then what happens? You will go to moon, moon and Mars, right? And then see about the galaxy, how far it is and how big it is. So a person can never complete the Jnana and Vijnana of the world. That is why it is told, a deep desire to quench more is also a burden. And even that should not be there for a yogi. That is why they didn't say stop. They said Tripta. I am happy with what I am. That contentment is what is required when it comes to Jnana and Vijnana. The ninth one is Samabuddhi. Balanced mind. What is balanced mind? Let us not discuss more. There are very limited time. The 8 or 9, 1, 2, 3, 8, 7. 7 conditions, 7 names Krishna says, and he says, in all these 7 people, if a person can have a same attitude, same relationship, then that person is yogi. A friend is coming, an enemy is coming, a relative is coming, a stranger is coming whom you don't even know. A neutral guy is coming. He's always neutral. He doesn't go to any stand. When it comes to right or wrong also, he will not stand towards right. Neutral guy. And a noble person, very great soul, and also a sinner. Can a person be same to all these kinds of people? If a person can be balanced, then that person is called yogi. Why is that so? Why a yogi should be like this? Naturally, yogi should be more close to the good people, right? Not towards the bad people also, right? No, it is not about good or bad. The electricity, electricity is common. It is there for everybody. And more than good people, only the bad people need yogis more so that they can get transformed. So therefore, yogi's vision is very same. He doesn't see the differences. He see everybody as himself or herself. Therefore, the Samabuddhi is the 9th quality. The last one and the best one, or very close to my heart, is Santushta Satatam Yogi. Yogi is a person who is always happy. Always happy. When the hand gets fractured, happy. When a wife, leaves house, happy. When the marks doesn't come, happy. When suddenly rain comes, happy. Any situation, that person's inner happiness, not outside happiness. When you pinch, that person will say, So that doesn't mean that a person is always happy. Therefore, he is like a buffalo. When the rain falls or anybody hits also, he will not have that, sahana samarthyam. No, it is about the inner happiness. the person's inner happiness will not change at all. And that is what is called Santushta Satatam Yogi. Today I was watching a video where the Indian girl who was participating in archery, when she was pulling the arrow, they were showing the heartbeat, the blood pressure, and whenever the blood pressure crosses 130, the arrow is not hitting the middle one, the bullseye, and whenever it is below 130, it is exactly hitting, bullseye. So therefore our body is continuously influenced by our mind. Therefore our happiness definitely matters, not the external but the internal. That is why Santushtaha Satatam Yogi. So Harilal ji, thank you so much. These are the 10 names we have crossed. Ji, do we have time? 1 minute?
Yeah, please.
Only 1 minute.
Yeah, please try. No problem.
Okay. So this is a very easy method to understand our journey. Always talking about all these big things are very easy because it needs just a tongue and it needs just a brain to register. But to implement is very very tough. So there is a easy a formula which my teacher told. The journey of becoming a yogi or reaching that happiness, first it happens in such a way that no realization happens. There are people, those who don't even understand that they are unhappy, and they say what they are living is the best and that is the best. They cry, they think of committing suicide, they hate, they have revenge, they have jealous, but still they think that they are perfect. That is called no realization state. The second one is a rare realization. Now and then, when someone scolds them, when they get into pain, that time they realize what I am living is very, very, not right. I need to work on my life. There are higher ways to live. That is a rare realization. The third one is post realization. After they commit a mistake, after they behave wrongly, after they do something stupid, after they get a wrong thought, then they realize, why should I get such a thought? Why did I do such a thing? This is post realization. And when they get continuously more post realization, then they enter into a zone called on the spot realization. When they do a mistake, they realize what you are doing is wrong, this moment you should not do this, and still they do. But on the spot, when they do, they remember that what they are doing is wrong. That is on the spot realization on the wrong deeds. And then comes the pre realization. Before they commit a mistake, the call comes from inside. No, you are not supposed to do, skip this, don't do this, don't do, and then they will skip it. So pre-realization. And then comes the most beautiful part. After having continuously pre-realization of mistakes, there comes a moment where they no need to realize because they got that level as their base. They get so comfortable with themselves where there is no need of any realization because no bad deeds come out of them. So this is a journey. In different mistakes, in different vasanas, we will have different ranks in this 1 to 6. So thank you so much for listening.